Welcome to the FNO InsureTech podcast, a place where movers and shakers from all points within the insurance ecosystem gather and discuss all things InsureTech. We talk about how technology and innovation are affecting and driving change in the industry. Here are your hosts, Lee Boyd and Rob Beller.
Hey, podcast world, welcome to another really interesting edition of FNO InsureTech. I am here with the smart one.
Hi, everybody.
That's right, Lee Boyd, the smart one. In fact, I know from the feedback that we get when we do podcasts and I'm not on it and it's just Lee, our ratings go way up. Should I take that personally?
No, I don't think so. And plus, I don't think that's true. But if it were, no, you wouldn't take
Which part do you think is not true? Because there were many, many non-truths in that statement I made.
They're just way up there, way up there.
You think it was all of them?
No, I don't want to play that game.
So we have on a guest today who looks just like my cousin, Brian Sikansky.
Okay.
And I hope Brian hears this episode because Brian, your doppelganger is on the podcast today.
Well, I'm sure Brian's very excited about that.
Yeah, except he has a goatee, and I don't think Brian does.
But Brian does.
Today, we have the really interesting privilege of having Brian Fritton, who's the CEO and founder of Havoc Shield, with us. Have you heard of Havoc Shield before?
Well, not before today. But you know what? Havoc Shield is a really cool company. It's a startup company that is really going to do some amazing things. It's out to serve the smaller to mid-sized companies, and it works around cyber insurance and their needs and cyber risk and attacks and things like that. And we're going to get to talk to Brian all about cyber and what his company's doing and how he's really changing the workplace for these companies.
Right, because as cyber insurance gets a little more nuanced to even get a policy because of the exposures and the liabilities involved. Brian's company is part of a group that helps you to be able to get the insurance. Right?
Yeah, I mean, because there's so much you have to do, right? There's so much that many of us don't even know what we need to do.
Right. Depending on the space you're in, there might be requirements and certifications and even licensing that's required in order for you to be bound on a policy. And it's way tricky. It ain't like getting auto insurance, ladies and gentlemen.
A little bit different.
So you need a company like Havoc Shield to get you through the process. And you're going to hear what we're talking about in a matter of seconds. Isn't that true, Lee?
Yeah, I'd say about 10 seconds.
And by the way,
well,
next week, where will you and I? Next week, you and I, San Antonio.
PLRB.
For us in the property claims business, our big conference.
Super Bowl.
2020, not held.
No.
2021, not held. 2022.
Yeah, but 2020, you were there.
I wasn't going to get into that, but that's true.
Yeah,
I went
there
all the way to Washington, D.C. to attend the conference that was canceled an hour after I got checked into my hotel.
Yeah, that's a shame. I had not left yet.
Yeah,
all of a sudden I get a message from Rob. It's like, don't come to D.C. COVID.
Yeah. Before it was called COVID. Then it was just coronavirus.
Yeah.
That was disappointing. And then I got to knowing that things are getting canceled and the world's closing down. I then got to get on 2 airplanes.
Yeah.
And travel for about 7 hours in airplanes, which was pretty gross. But that has nothing to do with our podcast today. Well, maybe it does. We'll figure that out. But instead of listening to us
jibber jabber,
be a couple of nimwits, why don't we get to our episode with Brian Fritton, CEO of Havoc Shield. Hey, everybody. We're here with our very special guest coming to us from, I don't even know where you are, Brian. Where are you?
Chicago.
Oh,
Chicago.
the Windy City. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite towns. We have with us today founder, CEO of Havoc Shield, Brian Fritton, coming to us, as he just said, from Chicago, Illinois. Welcome to our
Brian.
podcast.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you. Is it cold in Chicago or is it spring in Chicago?
Well, those things are one and the same in Chicago. Yeah, it's the roller coaster. It'll be 50, 60 or something, and I'll be walking around in t-shirts and shorts, and then it'll snow, which it did yesterday. So we got, I think, another month of that left until it gets demonstrably warmer.
That's cool. We have to share one quick story about you to show everybody how likable you are. You're not just a tech nerd like many of our guests are. Let's be honest. Okay. You're very clever. So Brian was telling us before that he has been involved in a couple of startups and has a very unique way that he goes about naming. So tell us where the name Havoc Shield came from and the story behind that.
Yeah. So I'm a multi-time founder, and I've had a couple of opportunities in my past to be the one choosing the name and designing the logo. You know, every time that happens, I've got the idea, or, you know, we'll say we're gonna do it. And my now tradition is to sit down late at night with a rocker of whiskey and just open Photoshop and go to town on that. And the last 3 startups that I've been a founding part of, the logos and the names have all come out of a whiskey-induced Photoshop session.
Alcohol-induced naming.
Nothing bad can come out of that.
Nothing bad. Although there may be some names that come out of it that the next day are rejected.
I would think. Uh-huh. So how does that work? Is it just like at the end of the night, you're like, I got it, I'm sticking with this? Or is it like I came up with 7 things, let's pick the best?
Usually there's only one, and then it either gets approved or denied by whoever I'm partnering with at the time. My last one was my brother. I was the CTO and he was the CEO. The last one, the company's name was Patch of Land. It was a real estate crowdfunding investment company. And so, you know, everybody wants their own little patch of land. So very, very clever name. And that was my brother's idea, was a name originally, but no logo. So I was on logo duty. And it's gone through a couple of revisions in the years since, but it's always stayed this sort of like little green and black globe that, you know, if you look at it with some different perspective, sometimes it can look like the Death Star. So, you know, gotta have a little fun with it. I'm a Star Wars nerd too. I got a lightsaber tattoo, so I don't mind it.
It just makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of fun.
I want you to know, of all the tech people we've ever had on the podcast, up to this point, which are almost a few hundred, or probably more than that, right, Lee? We've never had anyone admit that they have a lightsaber tattoo. This is a first.
I bet. It's all right there, right on the forearm.
For those of you, it's
length.
not a small one, folks.
No. Why blue?
That's commitment. That's commitment.
I got this tattoo for free in Los Angeles, by the way.
For free at a tattoo convention?
Nope. Walking down the street. I'll tell you that story. I wanted it. I wanted it for a while. So it was a plan. It's the Sith hilt and the Guardian emitter. So it's a little bit of good versus evil.
Yeah.
So that's why the colors and everything. But no, I wanted it for a while. And my now wife and I were walking down Melrose Boulevard in Los Angeles when we lived there before we moved back to Chicago. And some guys out there going, free tattoos. I'm like, oh, this is a bad idea. You know?
Yes. Turn away.
But I, kind of turned around as we were walking away and looked up the name of the shop, and it got 5-star reviews, and it's sitting here in this expensive part of town. So I turned around and what's going on? What's happening here? This is not like some back alley tattoo shop.
Right.
And he's like, I just moved here. I'm trying to get clients, and you let people know I did a good job for you. That's all I'm going to ask. So I made sure to take out a really good cash tip and give it to him beforehand.
Smart.
Then he gave me a nice tattoo.
You happy with it? I mean, on here it's a little blurry. I can't tell, but I mean, is it good? You're satisfied?
It's great. Whenever I get in the right group, I get to wave my arm around and make the sound.
The sound.
Yeah.
See, now what you got to do is meet somebody who has one on their arm, and then y'all can have fights.
That could also happen like in the rocker with whiskey.
Oh yeah.
Let's hear your lightsaber sound.
Mine's more of a.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
I like that.
Nice.
I like that. That was very
That
good.
is dedication. That's dedication to Star Wars right there.
Well, we're done here for today. Nice having you with us.
It's a pleasure having you on.
So let's shift gears. Great story. Thanks for telling us. But I want to talk about Havoc Shield, which is the real reason we're here. So let's start by having you tell us, what is Havoc Shield and what the heck is it, and what do you guys do?
Yeah, sure. So, as I said, I've had a couple of startups under my belt in the past. At that real estate one, we're passing a few $1 million to the wire every day, and we were getting poked by attackers because of it. And, I've always been interested in security, but never had a specific training or background in it. It was just the technical co-founder who always gets put in charge of that, right? So put a few things in place that, we thought needed to be there, but at the end of the day, we didn't really know if they were going to protect us from the types of things we need to be protected against, or if we got attacked, we were going to know what to do about it. So it left us kind of feeling uneasy, but the rubber really hit the road when, I exited that company. We moved back to Chicago, and I became the VP of engineering for a company that makes data science software for Fortune 500 companies and political institutions. And I quickly inherited IT and got put in charge of cybersecurity in front of the 2018 midterm elections. And at that time, we hosted about 9 out of every 10 progressive Democratic campaign strategy hubs, like the data everyone wants, in our software. So we had to get really, really serious, really fast about our security program. But we were, I think, about a 120 person startup at the time, no security. Significant security staff to speak of, a hell of a reason to get it right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And at the same time, I was also the executive in the room trying to convince Fortune 500 companies that we had done enough when it comes to their security so that we could win deals. So,
sure.
And that wasn't always easy. So it became actually a revenue problem as well, not just a financial risk or reputation problem. We had to go through, me and the small IT team, go through a lot of hurdles to try to kind of figure out how to put together a professional cybersecurity program that would protect us, would allow us to earn revenue from these customers, would help us recover in the event we did get attacked. And it was super, super tough. And most of this stuff out there in the security industry is just built for larger companies because that's where the money is, frankly. So exiting that, I talked to a number of other what we call security stewards, people that get put in this hot seat, right? Like they don't have a security background, but they have to do it anyway, not part of their job.
You're stuck.
Yep, you're stuck there. And what I quickly realized is it's an immense opportunity in an underserved market. It's kind of filled with contractors who are booked for months and months in advance, or you might be looking at like a hire who's going to start costing $250,000 plus a year. Great jobs, by the way, in the security industry.
Sure.
And most of the types of companies that I was talking to and friends with the founders of, they can't afford either of those, the time or the cost financially. So left that job and talked to customers for about 6 whole months about what they needed and what was going to work. And out of that came Havoc Shield. The idea is we do for cybersecurity kind of what TurboTax did for tax prep, right? It used to be this complicated, expensive, accountant-involved process just to figure out your fundamental taxes and get those filed. And if you don't do it right, there's ramifications to that. And so we took all of this ocean of technical, legal, compliance, complexity that is the cybersecurity world, and we bake it into a step-by-step plan that we like to say even the intern can manage. And out the other end comes a professional, compliance-aligned plan that helps you win customers, get insured, protect your reputation and your finances.
Now, you said out comes a plan. So is that what you guys do, is you help them devise a plan, or you actually have the product that then can be implemented in conjunction with the plan?
Yeah, both. So I'm glad you raised that. So, one problem that we heard a lot and still help with today is, there's all these security products. That's great, but it's this like fragmented, huge, again, ocean of just stuff that you don't know what you're supposed to buy first, second, or third, or when you should worry about that next thing. So the first thing is the plan, right? What's your data? Where does it live? What should we protect? How should we prioritize the things you do in a professional security program? So we start with the plan, but we don't just want to leave you with a project plan, which we saw that a lot of other companies trying to kind of solve the similar problems did.
Right.
So yeah, we have the tools baked in and integrated into the platform that let you actually do the homework behind those requirements.
So you're not only a consultancy, you're also a product.
It's all self-serve. So you can come in and you can start a trial. You can tell us about your data and your infrastructure and everything. We'll build that curated plan, and then you can get going right away. Obviously, we have invested significantly in our client success team. So if you get stuck somewhere, we're going to be there for you. Mm-hmm. But you can do this over a weekend yourself too. And it rolls out all those blue chip vendor products for you, keeps everything integrated and synced up, and helps you configure the stuff you already use securely.
And who's your ideal customer for this, for your company?
Yeah, so small companies, our sweet spot is between, say, 20 and 200 employees as a rough cut. And it's going to be folks who are in those sensitive industries, education, finance, healthcare. And it's companies, without security teams, right? So we can help you kind of stand up the foundational professional program, with your existing staff.
So is it possible that a startup company or a newly founded company could use your software here, and that could be their IT department for this problem, for their cyber problem?
Their security function.
Right. Yep. And so somebody would be an application user, right? Somebody would help oversee this, but you have the training, you have policy managers, you have all that stuff built into this, to these different levels, right?
Yeah. So everything's under one roof, and literally we have customers who it's the intern who's doing this, right? Like a lot of our customer companies have roadmaps and operations that they've got day jobs they got to get to, right? Security programs a necessity, oftentimes to win a customer, or you're in a state that has, cybersecurity laws like New York, and you're in the financial industry or whatever trigger that might be, you got to worry about it. But you also have customers you got to get to and product you got to build. And so sometimes this sort of thing gets offloaded to, a lower level employee. And so we wanted to make it sincerely professional in terms of its impact, but easy enough like TurboTax did for someone even like sitting at the front desk in an office could do.
So when you say a small business, this could be like a CPA office, right?
Yeah.
Like one person or two or whatever who carry a lot of sensitive data.
Yep. And that's actually kind of how we got into the insurance industry as well. As our core product certainly addressed some of the customers coming in needing to get past the requirements of cyber liability insurance and similar to the requirements of a new customer. But what we realized really quickly was we were a good fit for these customers who are not super technical. Before then we were kind of serving more technology enabled startups. But we moved pretty purposely into an area where, we can help that 5-person CPA firm comply with the types of regulations they now have on their back, as well as get insured. So, these applications for cyber liability insurance have gone from, 2 questions and a wink to, 20 over 4 pages and a prove everything or you're not going to get coverage. And so we were pretty well matched with being able to do the homework behind those and make sense of them.
It sounded like you originally started this to help people get revenue, to get in the doors of these companies to sell their product. But now there's also an aspect of getting insurance just so you can even be in business. Am I hearing that right?
Yeah. There's a number of triggers that we heard, from customers, and some of them come along with more than one of these triggers, but it's, in many cases, it's a customer or partner wants me to have my cybersecurity program tied up and matured before they're going to award me a deal or work with me. So it's a revenue problem or a strategic innovation problem. In these sensitive industries where there's millions of these small businesses, they have to, right? So whether it's at the state level, federal level, industry licensure, there's tons of these coming out now more than ever. So they've got to do it there as well. Their boards, their lawyers, their associations are telling them they've got to. Or, they've had a scare recently. Someone clicked on the wrong link and opened the wrong thing, and, they kind of are wiping the sweat off their brow and say, oh, we better get serious about this now. And right. It's the threat of that reputational impact and the financial impact of an attack. And in more ways than one, a lot of these triggers synthesize down into, one of the best things you can do is get coverage for that, right? But in order to get coverage, you got to actually have a reasonable cybersecurity program. So that's kind of why we centered on that.
So I'm looking through here on your website. You have different pricing models for different things. I'm just reading through this list. Why don't you tell our audience some of the services you offer, some of the applications you offer within these different pricing models? Sure.
Yeah. So we took a very specific approach when it comes to the types of vendor tools that you need as part of a cybersecurity program. We didn't want to go and reinvent the wheel, and we're never going to build a better password manager, right? There's tons of good ones out there. We're never going to build a better interactive, award-winning cybersecurity training and phishing simulation service, right? There's great ones out there. So instead, what we did is we went as professionals with an advisory board filled with people who have been in the security, compliance, and risk space for years and years and years, selected the best in breed in each of those categories, right? So, and then we partner with them. And by partnering, I mean, we went and just did some significant work economically where we get very, very good prices. And then we deeply integrated them. So in one platform, in the Havoc Shield platform, when you need to roll out team training, instead of going over here and doing that and negotiating that all yourself and getting a retail price because you're a small company, you click the button in our platform. It looks the same as the other button that you would have clicked to roll something else out. We configure it for you using best practice, compliance aligned configuration. We pay for it for you. We sync all your users, and we keep it up for you. So that's what we do on the vendor side. We've built some first-party tools to make it easy to manage those in one place. So, out the other end of a vulnerability scanner comes vulnerabilities, right, that you got to deal with. So we built some homes for that type of data to make it easier to manage. And then the last part is configuration. So you use Office 365, or maybe you use Google Workspace, whatever you use as your sort of email productivity suite. All of these ship default insecure with a lot of the security features turned off. For example, multi-factor authentication, right? One of the first things that, you get asked on an insurance policy. Two, the first thing you should be doing from a security standpoint to protect yourself against a whole, category of attacks. And so these are configurations that need to be done inside software, applications, and services that you already use. It's not about rolling out another tool or vendor, but they're advanced topics sitting inside, administration areas that are 8 clicks deep and use terminology that most of us are not familiar with. And so you don't know if you did it right. And then there's all these follow-up activities that need to be done, like ensuring that all of your team members configure MFA, right? Not just that it's turned on. And so we built technology called our guidance assistant, which just overlays point and click guidance on top of those configuration areas to show you how to correctly configure those, tracks that you did so correctly, and then can validate that evidence out the other end, and then spins up all those follow-on activities like having your employees do it.
So you're an aggregator, if you will. You aggregated best-in-class platforms and services into one particular go-to-market idea.
Yep, under one roof. Yeah. And so, where we need to build something because in the industry, it's too complex because it's often built for larger companies or too expensive, then we will. But where we can do the work on behalf of our clients to, synthesize these enterprise-grade tools into a space where they can be useful to small companies, then that's what we'll do too. We're really we keep a careful eye of what's the right build versus buy decision for our customers.
So what happens if one of your customers has a data breach or has something that happens? Do they go find somebody else to help them, or is that also within your realm?
Yeah, so we don't, within our walls, get into the breach response side of things, but we do orchestrate what to do next from a sort of like, oh, we realize that we might have something going on here point of view. And so when you sign up and you start paying, you get a big red 800 phone number. That is the emergency, oh crap, phone number.
Yeah.
And you can call us. We will use the sort of telemetry that we have into your company to sort of validate that something might be going on or not. And at that point, then we have a marketplace of partners who know how to use Havoc Shield and everything to more quickly accelerate their response, their forensics, and their recovery. And so while we don't get into all that, we leave that to the professional consultants.
You facilitate.
Correct.
Let's talk about insurance a little more, because I need a little more help on how you got into insurance and what exactly you do, because basically you work with agents, correct? So tell us what you do in the insurance world.
Yeah, so we first came into the insurance world back late last year when we were working with a wholesaler, actually a cyber liability specialty wholesaler who wanted help solving a pipeline problem. And that problem was that their brokers, their independent brokerages that were working with them as the wholesaler, were kind of complaining that, these requirements coming down from the carrier level were A, really hard to understand, and B, really hard to get the homework done behind. And because of that, it was just gunking up the pipeline, right? So it was a big revenue problem again. And to that extent, also, like, these brokers are spending a significant amount of time trying to coach these smaller applicants through what they mean and how to know where they stood, and then again, how to solve for a satisfactory answer. And so we built a couple of products with them. One is called our Cyber Fitness Assessment, and it is like that pre-bind conversation of what do these requirements even mean, and where do I stand on them, right? So you get a cyber liability application and it says, do you use SPF, DKIM, and DMARC? Most people don't know what those things are, right?
I have no idea.
I use SPF for my skin in the sun.
SPF 50.
Both protective tools. So we, similar to what we've done with our core product, cleaned up a lot of that jargon and that language, built a wizard where they can say, I don't know, and we'll tell them what it is. And we'll provide them tools to figure out where they stand on the sort of scorecard of requirements.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's the first piece is, what does this mean and where do I stand? And then the second piece is, okay, now I got to do the homework behind those gaps. And so that flows obviously very nicely into our core product. So,
and it's the broker that uses that?
So the broker can introduce their insureds, their
applicants.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then that end customer can use it. Certainly the broker can pull up our tools and have the conversation live on the phone using the same wizard. But what we wanted to do was solve the problem of these brokers who want to sell more policies. Of course, they want to have better relationships with their clients too. They got to go sell policies. They don't have hours to coach these small, insurance applicants through these requirements. So we wanted to remove that requirement of having to coach these applicants through them.
So in the monetization part of this, how does that work? Tell me about that.
Yeah. So a brokerage to get these tools. So we obviously have some work to do to map their carrier's requirements into the cyber fitness assessment, the content there, the experience there, and then the custom program to meet those requirements, and the evidence package that we put together for them at the end of it, and all that good stuff to submit and streamline underwriting. There's a good amount of work we do there, and it comes co-branded. It comes along with a bunch of training and thought leadership collateral and all that stuff to make you look really smart when you talk about cybersecurity. So we charge a flat fee, license fee per year. It's $10,000. We're super transparent about our pricing, as you can tell from our website. Basically, that is a license fee to accelerate your pipeline by a significant margin and reduce that coaching. We've got a calculator that, as we kind of understand how much premium you write and commission you charge, how much money we're saving you. We're at least 4xing people's investment here on the smaller end.
And I would think that you guys are in a great spot because, as we all know, cyber, 5 years ago was, like you said, it was two questions and a wink. And now it's, I don't know if it's the number one growing segment in insurance, but it probably is. If it's not one, it's two. And it's huge, right? And nobody, like you're saying, almost everybody has to have it in some way, shape, or form, right? So you guys are really riding a wave here. Is that?
Yeah.
I mean, is that what you're finding?
Yeah. So what we found is cyber. I think it's $9 billion in premium in 21, and it's growing at a CAGR rate of something like 27%, adding billions in market here every year. And we want to help independent brokerages, which the vast majority of small businesses want to do business with independent brokerages. We want to help them accelerate their adoption of this and do a better job at addressing their clients' needs while still not turning them into, like, forcing them to be cybersecurity experts. And that's kind of what it's taking a lot of these brokerages to do right now, because these underwriters have seen their loss ratios go insane in the last couple of years. Right. And so a tool like ours kind of helps solve the problems and make sure that you can witness some significant margin off these small policies.
So, I mean, you must have caught the attention of carriers as well, who are thinking, how can I use this? How can this be part of my, production scheme that I'm giving to brokers? Is that correct?
Yeah, so they definitely have noticed us. We haven't been in the insurance industry as a
you've been in the insurance space like 15 minutes, but
yeah, not super long. So we're transparent about that, and that we're learning right now for sure. But we have gotten a couple carriers who've noticed what we're doing with brokers, because at the end of the day, they're seeing these consistent evidence-backed underwriting packages, and they're liking them. So they are asking more. But what we're seeing from a strategic point of view that the carriers are doing is they're going to their, their MGAs and their wholesalers and some of their VIP brokers, and they're saying, we want you to figure out how to do a better job at this. We are interested in developing products where, Havoc Shield may be a subjectivity or a preferred rating system if you get through the program. And so they're kind of talking to that like MGA and wholesaler tier and running experiments, right? And we see a lot of InsureTechs out there who are brokers themselves and are doing these types of things with outside-in scanning, but it's not demonstrably reducing loss ratios is what we're seeing. And so these carriers are still very interested in getting verifiably higher, better coverage on these controls from the inside. And so, yeah, they're taking notice, but they're still just kind of talking to their wholesalers and MGAs and saying, do more of that. And I think we'll start to see standardization maybe up at the top in a year or two.
I would think that that's coming.
Yeah.
I would think.
Yeah. I mean, and particularly like you said, with the kind of losses that are starting to mount with cyber and the prospects of that only getting worse,
right,
or higher, depending on how you want to phrase it. I would think that there's tons of underwriters out there who are like, we have to do something now.
Yep. And they're all really interested in making sure that what the answer is on the application is what is actually in place, right?
Is there testing that goes on? Are the carriers actually going in and testing systems, or are they just
or validating or auditing?
Or are they just, taking the underwriting at its word and then they'll check if there is a loss?
They're requiring proof more and more is what we're seeing. So they themselves are not going and do the testing a lot. I think a number of them are investing in scanning tools, but again, it's only that sort of outside in. Like, it can't tell if you're training your staff and if everyone has MFA turned on, right?
Right.
So it only goes so far. So what more and more of them are doing is requiring proof of those controls being met. So uploading screenshot evidence and stuff like that. And it's a really bumpy process. And it's a bad customer experience. And so they're all looking for ways to, turn this into something that looks like a benefit. Right. And so we look like a benefit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see there being a lot of value, right? You have the shield, and you're saying, hey, we provided all this, we verified they have it. They have the shield of approval. That's pretty cool. I think I think it'll be there. Aldrin, who edits the podcast, he asked a question here. With the war in Ukraine, there's been talks in the news of the possibility of cyber attacks. Has the war shed any light on cyber risk and importance of cyber security?
Yeah, I mean, like the name of the game here with Russia, is inflicting as much chaos on the supply chain and the economics of our nation as possible. And so while you certainly will have very sophisticated state-sponsored attacks, those are going to be aimed at things like critical infrastructure and very specific, carefully chosen targets. Small businesses are still in a bad place right now because, and this has been true for a while, but it's just accelerating now with the incentives that other countries have to attack us. Is the tools and capabilities required to breach most small businesses are user-friendly and free. They are open source things that are cheap to run and what we would call a spray and pray attack. And so since like the idea here is to introduce as much chaos as possible and slow down our economy, if you can do that against the millions of small businesses, which are the nation's largest aggregate employer of Americans, then that's something they're going to want to do. And they can do it using teenagers and scripts running on a laptop. And you can look for vulnerabilities in an old WordPress installation that someone's got running or whatever that might be. And unfortunately for small businesses, it is more likely that you're going to get breached because none of us really have the time to keep up on the system patching and hardening that these larger companies do, and so we're squishy targets.
That's tragic. I mean, one of the things I'm sitting here, wondering as we're sitting here is how am I? I mean, your friends must be saying, "Hey, Brian, I got to ask you, what do I do?"
Yep.
Right. And so, I mean, what advice do you have? And we'll just take a little side here to the rest of today's episode and interview. What do we do?
Yeah.
As individuals?
I'm going to send you an invoice after this. The biggest things I'd say are MFA, multi-factor authentication, on everything you can have it on, right? So businesses are getting better at supporting this functionality. Your bank accounts, your email accounts, anything that supports multi-factor authentication, turn it on, because it's so easy for attackers to trick you into getting your credentials. And if you have MFA, it's just so much harder for them to do anything with that account. It's not foolproof, but it's a huge, huge wall. And so turn on everything. If you have something critical like a bank account where your bank doesn't support that functionality, I'm serious about this, move banks, because that account can get cleaned out faster than you think. The second thing is keep your software updated. So patching is the best way to remove the threat vector of old software that has known security vulnerabilities, right? So, you have security researchers out there who regularly go and poke around, Windows and Photoshop and QuickBooks and whatever other applications. And they regularly find security vulnerabilities that allow for all sorts of mayhem to happen. And if you're not regularly installing the patches that fix those security issues, then you're a sitting duck. And so keep your computers updated, keep your software updated. And then thirdly, there's a huge human element to this. Is you can have the best technology out there, but if Justin in accounting clicks on the wrong link, you can only defend so much. And so invest, and it is really affordable. There's a great company out there that we love called Curricula, who supplies free, really excellent cybersecurity training for small companies and individuals. And it'll teach you how to spot malicious messages. It'll teach you how to respond. It'll teach you how to set up strong passwords. And so invest in your humans' knowledge about how to avoid these types of things.
Cool. We really appreciate that. And that that address is Lee Boyd at FNOInsureTech.com. Go ahead and, in fact, you might want to pad it and include a little tip for yourself there. I want to talk a little bit about you. You're an interesting cat. I mean, you look like, for those of you who are only listening to this, Brian looks like he's like 19 with a goatee. So obviously you're a young man. You've done some cool things. Give us a little bit about your background, if you would.
Sure. Yeah, I'm about to be 35. I always say to people who still card me at CVS, that's going to be really great when I'm in my 50s.
So I'm not crazy, right? I mean, you get that.
I think the wedding ring has helped with the not getting carded thing. That's helpful, but it still happens. Good genes. Yeah, so I was always really privileged as a kid to have a computer pretty young. My parents brought in I can't remember exact what model it was, but an old Apple, and just latched onto it really quick, and I was born as dial-up modems were becoming mainstream in homes. And my brother, who I've started a couple of businesses with, was a quick adoptee into the internet age, and I kind of followed him into it. And was always super interested in the security side of it. And I don't really know why, but the results of it were, I think an intense desire to protect people. I was a police officer for a while in a past life.
Wow.
And I've brought that desire to protect people into, my work in technology. But even before all of that, I was the kid who was drawing code pads on cardboard and sticking them on the thresholds of doors inside my parents' house. And they weren't allowed to go into the other room until they typed the right code in. I was that guy. So I had a really specific interest in it, but never a specific training. But, going through these startups and different jobs in software and technology, just always got handed that role. And so had to get trained up in it through being in that hot seat. I live in Chicago, 2 dogs, fantastic wife, got a cat.
You were in Techstars for a while.
Yeah.
Was that with Havoc Shield?
Yep, that was Havoc Shield, yeah.
How was that? How was your incubator accelerator experience?
It was great. I mean, the managing director, Neil Salas Griffin there, has been an incredible mentor and resource for me. And I think is now a lifelong friend. I think Techstars can really be made by the cohort you're with and by, the mentors at any specific program. And they run city to city, have there in Chicago, and Neil have done a really excellent job with choosing the companies who get into the accelerator. It's pretty tough to get in. And then 2 is surrounding them with really excellent mentors. And, I had been through the startup game a couple of times already. So there was some of the 101 knowledge that, maybe I didn't really need, but they treat you like adults. They don't make you to go to this stuff. They say, continue running your business, and here's the stuff you need if you need it.
Mm-hmm.
That's nice.
And came out of that. This was at the beginning of 2020, and we got sent home in the middle of the accelerator because of COVID. So we completed it all remote on the back of a remote demo day, raised that about a $1.5 million round, and that's still serving us today. So I'd say it worked.
That's wonderful.
That's pretty remarkable. And that's one of the things that I wanted to ask you about. In the world of venture funded companies, that's a very small raise and only once. That must speak to the kind of uptake you guys are having. Either that, or you're still staying with mom and dad. I mean,
it would certainly be cheaper, but no.
Maybe they never figured out how to get into that one room, and you're still using it.
Yeah. So I was in Los Angeles for a time, and Los Angeles is great when it comes to energy of people starting companies there. But I moved back to Chicago for a specific reason, and that is the types of companies that get started here are really, really resilient. And the founders have immense respect, I think, for the responsibility that you have over investors' money and your own time and your customers' trust. And we're a pretty humble bunch here in the Midwest. And I like that too. Sometimes we have trouble talking about ourselves enough to actually get attention.
Sure.
That's the side of it. But yeah, we invest really carefully, and we reinvest the money that our customers pay us. And in 2021, we grew about 6 times from when we started.
Wow. That's fabulous.
wonderful.
And how's 2022 doing?
So far, on track to do hopefully about the same. It's another year where more stuff's hitting the fan, and we wanna be there to help. And the insurance channel for us is a space where we think that there's a win-win-win. The brokers can win, our customers can certainly win, and we get to experience some of that growth.
On that idea, I want to talk about go-to-market for a minute and just how you guys penetrate. How have you gotten the word out? How have people found you thus far?
Yeah, we're still figuring out what some of the re-articulation of our marketing needs to look like in the space. Mm-hmm. We have so far been blessed to have a good reputation among our networks, and we have had our customers introduce us to their insurers and say, I want to use Havoc Shield to get through my renewal next year. And so we have gotten sort of this, I guess, bottoms up attention. And inevitably, the insurance space is a pretty competitive one, especially regionally. And we're working with smaller independent brokers too, right? And so when someone in the Chicago space starts using us, we're getting reached out to by 2 or 3 more that say, I want to do that too. And then I think we're kind of getting eaten up the chain a little bit. So their wholesalers and their MGAs are seeing the success of some of that. And they want to expand the reach of that success out to their other brokers.
So organic, it's very organic. It's very word of mouthy.
Yeah, and we know that we have to do our job as a good sort of participant in the industry, being out at conferences and talking more about this topic. So we're going to start doing more of that as well.
Is there a conference where people will see you?
Nothing on the docket yet, but that's kind of the inventory we're looking at. If you have any recommendations, I'm all ears.
InsureTech Connect. That's where you need to go. That is right up your alley.
Yeah, there's no question you need to be at ITC. And as we bring to a close, there's a couple other things on your resume that I think are interesting. Founding member of the Forbes Technology Council. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's a good program. So the Forbes Councils were born out of the YEC, the Young Entrepreneurs Council, which I'm a member of, and was started by some very experienced entrepreneurs. And, it's all the entrepreneurs who still look like they're 19, right? And they partnered with Forbes to create an opportunity for startups like us who are in the trenches solving problems and changing things to talk about those more. And so there's opportunities for members in those councils on an invite-only basis to write thought leadership pieces and answer questions that journalists have and all that good stuff. So it's a nice little channel for us to talk a little bit more.
Well, we have really enjoyed having you with us today. First of all, you're a good sport and put up with some of our ridiculousness, but more importantly, have continued to expand our appreciation and knowledge and product knowledge of what's out there on the cyber side, which I think if we just did cyber as our podcast topic, we could go on for a long time, right? Mm-hmm. And so thanks for being with us. And we really, a company like yours that is still emerging, we'd love to have you back, in the near future and hear more about what's going on.
I would love to come back. I'd love it.
Great. Well, thank you. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
So Lee, cyber. Wow.
Yeah, it's a thing.
It's a thing.
Cyber's big, right? It's huge, and it's an evolving world. It's not like home insurance where there's a home and it's built. Cyber is growing, and we don't even know where it's going.
No. No, even the best of them don't know where it's going. All you can do is keep up. And like he said, this was one of the most interesting things. I mean, a laptop and a teenager, right, can create tremendous havoc.
Yeah.
I mean, so the barriers to entry to being a cyber problem are so low
Right.
that it's not going to be ever hard to find actors to take care of, to create havoc.
Yeah, and I think Brian's company really comes in and serves a need that the industry has, is for the smaller, mid-sized companies who can't afford these giant teams, but yet they need just as much protection as these other companies.
Right.
And he's really doing a service out there for these startups, for these newly founded companies.
Right. And the thing about a whole new area of insurance need like cyber is there's different products that are going to be needed inside of that are just emerging or being created or invented. Right. Yeah. And that's at least in part what Havoc Shield is. Very, very super interesting.
I agree.
Super interesting. And we thank him for being with us today. And most of all, as always, thank you guys for listening to us and putting up with this circus that we call a podcast. And thank you to Alicia and to Al, our intrepid producers, for the work that they do. And thank you to my co-host. What's your name again?
The smart one.
Thank you to the smart one for being with us today. And this is the smart one saying what we say every single time.
Goodbye, everybody.